Dear Buddy, we are live. The floor is yours.
Okay, am I please audible enough?
Yes, my dear, you are.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're joining us today. And you are welcome to today's session organized by Women's Ascension. My name is Budi Jemima Bernier, and I'll be your moderator for today. Once more, thank you all for joining us from different places. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. For those who may be new to Women Ascension, it is a global initiative built on the belief that empowered women can transform communities, industries, and futures. With a presence in 134 countries and 10 multidisciplinary departments, from STEM and climate action to peace building and media, Women Ascension provides a space where women from all walks of life can lead, learn, and lift others. At its heart, Women Ascension is not just about leadership, it is about belonging. It is about creating pathways for women to step into their potential while staying grounded in empathy, collaboration, and service. Today's session is part of the Community Outreach series organized by the Community Outreach Department under the 1 Million Leadership Fellowship. That is a flagship program of Women Ascension. The 1 Million Leadership Fellowship is a 16 weeks immersive experience that nurtures emerging leaders through hands-on work across departments such as advocacy, digital literacy, policy, and storytelling. It is deeply aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially those focused on gender equality, education, climate, and resilience. And with that spirit, today's session centers on a vital theme, which is understanding the rights of children. We will explore what children's right means, why they matter, and how the child rights framework can guide us towards stronger protection and promotion of children's well-being. Every child deserves safety, dignity, and the opportunity to flourish. And today, we will learn the practical ways to help make that vision a reality. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Z Root. Root is a vision bearer of the Rooty Counseling Center, a trained social worker and a psychologist with over 5 years of experience in psychosocial care. She is deeply dedicated to supporting the mental health and well being of individuals, families, and communities who have faced trauma, anxiety, and distressing situations, guiding them towards healing through structured therapy sessions. Her primary focus is on women and girls who are survivors of gender based violence. Through individual counseling, group sessions, peer support, positive parenting initiatives, and awareness programs, Rooty Counseling Center has been able to impact more than 1,000 lives, creating ripples of healing and hope across communities. As Ruth takes us through her presentation, I encourage you to keep your microphones muted, but please use the chat box for your questions or comments. We will address them during the question and answer segment at the end of her presentation. Ruth, thank you for being with us here today. And now I hand the floor over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jemima, for the presentation. I am glad to be here this afternoon to share with us this knowledge, and hope by the end of the session, we are all going to learn and we are going to share with one another to have a better understanding of what child protection is all about and how we can make it better and protect children in our various communities. To also appreciate the Women Ascension Management for this opportunity and to apologize for the poor network. I know this session was supposed to take place yesterday, but due to network challenges, which was beyond my control, I wasn't able to get through this session. But I believe that process for all of us. So thank you very much for joining us and stay tuned as we go ahead. Okay, Ms. Damina, please can you go to the next slide? Okay, the objective of our session, we go with it right away. The goal of this session is to enhance knowledge on the rights of children and how to promote children's rights, framework, childhood protection, and promotion. So those are the various things that we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at the rights of children. We'll be looking at the framework. We'll be looking we'll be looking at how to protect and how to promote children's right, basically. So stay tuned as we ride on, and make sure you drop your questions on the comment box. We'll answer them at the end of the session. Okay, before we begin, if we are talking about the rights of the child, we first of all need to know who a child is. And so looking at who a child is, according to the Convention on the Rights of a Child is any human being below the age of 18. So any human being who is below the age of 18 is considered a child. In most communities, sometimes we see people who are below the age of 18 getting into marriages, getting into some activities that are normally carried out by adults, and we mistakenly place them in the category of adults. Meanwhile, they are still children. So they are supposed to be treated like children as well. So we have to put it in our minds that a child is anybody who is below the age of 18. No matter the activity the person is carrying out, no matter the status the person has attained, as long as the person is still below the age of 18, then he or she is still a child. Next slide. Okay, how will you explain child protection? How will you explain child protection? We've already seen the definition of a child, and we've seen that a child is anyone who is below the age of 18. And now, since we are talking about child protection, we need to also look at what we mean by child protection as well. Next slide. Okay, what is child protection? Child protection is the prevention of and response to abuse, neglect, exploitation, and violence against children. I take it over again. Child protection, it is the prevention of and response to abuse, neglect, exploitation, violation against children. So there are key things that we need to look at when we are talking about child protection. I think every word in this definition is very important, and we need to take close look and detailed care to understand it better. When we talk about prevention in child protection, we mean that we are preventing the child from something that is yet to happen. And when we're talking about response means reacting to what has happened already. And now what are we preventing the child from? We are either preventing the child from abuse, we are either preventing the child from neglect, we are either preventing the child from exploitation, and we are either preventing the child from violence. And when we go to response has to go with responding to also these four aspects where we have abuse, neglect, exploitation, and violence. So these are the four basic areas where we are protecting the child from when we talk about child protection. Next slide, please. So we've spoken about child protection and the terms we have in child protection that we have to take note of it. We have abuse, we have neglect, we have violence, and we also have exploitation. So we'll be taking detailed look on or about this. So we next slide. Okay, child protection concerns. The first thing we'll be looking at is abuse. Abuse. It is a deliberate act with actual or potential negative effects on the child's safety, well-being, dignity, and development. The act is committed in the context of a relationship of responsibility, trust, and power. So when we talk about child abuse, or when we talk about abuse in child protection, we see that it is a situation where trust is being violated, where power is being used because maybe of position or whatever, you abuse you abuse the dignity of the child, the well-being of the child, and even the child's development. So anything that you do that is negative, that affects the child negatively, maybe oh, sorry. Hello.
Yes, you're back, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. We can get you.
Okay, sorry. So I was talking about child abuse, and what I'm trying to say is that anytime you act negatively or you do something to a child that affects the child, that affects the child negatively, or the child's well-being, or the child's dignity, or the child's development, that is termed child abuse. And that is one of the areas that we are looking at, that as humanity abuse children, even in the course of our intervention. We also have violence. Violence refers to all acts that involve the intentional use of power or force. It can be verbal or physical against a child that either results in harm or high likelihood of harm to the child's safety, well-being, dignity, and development. So there is a kind of relationship, interrelationship with all these terms. You have abuse, neglect, violence, and exploitation that has to do with harming the child, and going against the child's safety, against the child's dignity, and against the child's development. So anything that you do verbally or physically against the child that results in harm. Hello,
Yes,
Yes,
hello. You
ma'am.
broke.
please, next slide. Okay, we've just spoken about violence, and we'll be looking at the type of violence. Basically, we have three types of violence that is usually most occurrent in communities, in societies, in our areas of work. And the first one we'll talk about is physical abuse. We also have sexual abuse. We also have emotional abuse. And what is physical abuse? Physical abuse is the use of violent physical force to cause actual or likely physical injury or suffering. It can be hitting, it can be shaking, it can be burning, it can be physical torture, it can be kicking, it can be punching. There are a lot of activities that we do physically that affect the children. So with that, it goes a long way to affect the child. Hello.
Actually, ma'am, I guess the ma'am got disconnected, so she will be rejoining soon.
Okay. Let me continue. When she joins us, she gets to where we are.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, talking about physical violence. Physical violence is any hitting or any shaking, burning, or physical torture that you do to a child that harms the child at the end of the day. And so I'll just share this experience. I was working with someone and with a child, and the child, I noticed that the child had burns on her face. So when I wanted to inquire that, where did you get this from? How did it happen? She told me that my mom poured hot water on my face. And so that is a physical violence that needs to be. It wasn't intentional. It is an intentional act that was committed by the parents to the child. So this physical violence is not only committed maybe by a perpetrator or someone who is not related to a child. It can be committed by the parents or the caregivers or people or guidance of the child. Anybody who surrounds the child can commit this physical abuse, which we need to condemn so highly. So talking about sexual abuse, we have all forms of sexual violence. It can be rape by any perpetrator, sexual exploitation, indecent touching, and exposure using sexual explicit languages, touch a child towards a child, showing a children pornographic materials. So these are some of the things that we do either consciously or unconsciously to children. But with the issue of rape, we usually see that it is actually a planned act or just a deliberate act of violation against a child. Because when you see somebody raping a child, it means that the person had planned it, and seeing the struggle is a planned act. We also have showing videos or pornographic materials to children, which is actually a form of sexual abuse. These days, we are so exposed to social media that we just show whatever we wish to show to our children back at home, be it children in our care or children wherever. They are so exposed to social media in such a way that they get to watch pornographic movies, they get to watch sex tapes, which end up working on their mental, on their minds, and at the end of the day, they are being abused sexually because they get maybe into sexual acts even when they are still children. And remember that anybody below the age of 18 is a child, so they are not supposed to get in touch with all these materials, all these videos, clips or tapes of pornography even at their younger age, because when it exposes them to that, it causes a lot of effects on their minds, and at the end of the day, it forces them to be abused. We also have emotional and degrading treatment, like name calling, constant criticism, persisting shaming. Sometimes we do what we usually term body shaming to children. You insult a child, you tell a child, look at your big head, look at your eyes are not even good looking. All those demeaning abusing the child, either negatively. Can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can get you.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
madam.
Okay, thank you very much. So talking about emotional pain, emotional abuse, we are talking about using belittling words, You tell a child that you can never amount to anything, you are not good enough. You begin to body shame a child so much so that when the child looks at his or herself in the mirror, the child feels so bad of who he or she reality or face his friends or everybody that is close to him or her because of the kind of words, the demeaning words that he or she has heard from whoever is living or is taking care of the child. So we have to be very careful with all of this. Sometimes we are also perpetrators of those things. We are also perpetrators of those abuses. And so we have to be very careful so that we don't perpetrate children, or we are not perpetrators in the course of our services to these children that we work. Service workers, we need to know that all these are supposed to put in place. We have to consider all of this, even so that when we want to say something to a child, you mind the words you use, you mind how you say it, because it has a way of playing in the child, even in a long time or in the long time. So we have to be very careful not to abuse children physically, sexually, and emotionally. Next slide, please. Hello, please. Next slide. Okay, let me continue while we wait for the moderator to get to the next slide. The next one we'll talk about, we've already spoken about neglect. We are now going to talk about neglect and abuse, neglect, violence, and exploitation. And so now we're going to be looking at neglect and exploitation, which has to do with child protection as well. We begin with neglect, the intentional or unintentional failure to protect a child from actual or potential harm to their safety, well-being, dignity, and development, or failure to fulfill the child's right while having the child's responsibility for well-being of the child and the capacity, ability, and resources to do so. Let's take note of the capacity and the ability and the resources to do so. The first thing about this term is that it is the intentional or and unintentionality. There are people who neglect children without knowing that that is what they are doing, while there are others who actually do that intentionally. They don't want to take care of the children. They don't want to. In most of the communities where I work presently, I get to meet children who have been neglected by their loved ones, by their caregivers, by their parents, or intentionally. Like they just leave the child, they don't care about the child's well-being, they keep the child looks nasty, they don't bathe the child. And at the end of the day, you see that the child may contract diseases and not be healthy just because the child sanitation has not been well managed or not properly managed. And so that is intentional neglect. And we also have unintentional neglect, that somebody does it not knowing that that is actually neglect that they are committing to the child. And so looking at neglect, we talk about your capacity or your responsibility, that you are able as a caregiver or a parent or a child protection worker, you are able to have a child, but you still neglect the child. You have the resources, you have the ability to do so, but you overlook it and you neglect the child. So the next one is exploitation. When individuals in position of power and trust take or attempt to take advantage of the child for their own personal benefit, advantage, gratification, or profit. This personal benefit may take different forms: physical, sexual, financial, material, social, military, or especially in areas where we have crisis, where we have crisis going on. I take an example from Cameroon, where we have an ongoing crisis in the northwest and southwest regions. We get to see that many children have been exploited sexually.
Hello, everyone. Our speaker seems to be having some network issues. She will reconnect with us very soon. Please let's be patient.
Hello, everyone. Can you get me now? Sorry, my network just
Yes,
knocked
we
me
can
out.
get you now, Maru.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was talking about physical or they get into a community, they get to exploit children because the children cannot retaliate because they have that power, they have that energy. You see, maybe the military getting into a community because they have arms, they force children, they get into sexual relationships with children, they get to. And at the end of the day, we discover that children are exploited, and those are working with children. Next slide, please. Okay, now we've spoken about neglect, we've spoken about exploitation, and we have understood that neglect is a deliberate or through carelessness, failing to, please previous slide, failing to take care for and to protect the child. It can be abandonment, lack of supervision, inadequate basic care that results in or is likely to result in harm, can result to a potential harm to the child. We also have exploitation, which is the use of children for someone else's advantage, gratification, or profit. also called child labor. Child labor is one of the worst forms. So we have to be very careful with all this, even as we work with children. Next slide. We'll be looking next at the overriding principles of child protection. Please, can we continue? Okay, looking at the child. The first principle is the principle survival, development, and protection. Children have the right to be protected and given the chance to develop. When we talk about child development, it is a kind of holistic growth. So we don't allow children to develop maybe mentally and we neglect their physical development. First of all, if a child is not able to develop physically, it means the child cannot also develop well mentally. So all is a kind of a holistic program where a child develops both mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, even as they get to grow together. So that's one of the first principles of child protection. We also have the next one, which is non-discrimination. Everybody should be treated equally, regardless of factors such as sex, race, religion, ethnicity, or culture. Sometimes we are faced in a situation where we treat children based on their sexes, based on their races. Okay, because this person is Black, because this person is white, or I will not treat them the same because they are not the same in the same category. And we go to religions, you begin to discriminate amongst the religion. Or working with children is not about religion. As long as someone is a child, the person has the right to have the same opportunities indiscriminately. So we have to be very careful on how we manage children, on how we give our or offer services to children. We also have participation. Children have the right to be heard and make their views known on matters which affect them. That is full participation. It starts from decision making. When you want to carry out an activity, the child should be involved in the planning of that activity. The child should be involved in taking care of that, in carrying out that activity. And even in the completion of that activity, the child has to be fully involved. That is what we call participation. If you design an activity and you just come and implement on the child, it means that the decided to do it by yourself, and at the end of the day it will not help the child the way it would have helped the child if you allow the child to participate fully, even in the planification, in the execution, and in every other aspect of the activity. So we have to be very careful to make sure that children participate, especially in activities that fully concern them. We also have the best interest of the child. Talking about the best interest of the child is a primary concern, which means thinking of the children first in any laws or actions. And what do we mean by this? When putting on laws or when setting laws, when putting laws in place, we should first of all think about the best interest of the child. And the best interest of the child has to do with how is it going to affect the child? How is it going to affect the child's development mentally? How is this law going to affect the child's development emotionally? How is this law going to affect the child's development physically and even spiritually? So we have to consider all of that before putting any law into consideration, because if that is not taken into consideration, we can go ahead as child protection managers or child caregivers the end of the day, it's going to retard development in children. So we have to be very careful, even when we are putting laws in place that will affect children. So much so that whatever we do, we should do it in such a way that it affects children positively and not negatively. That will help in developing the child mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay. Looking at the fundamental rights of for the rights of the child has set in place as the rights of the child, because that's where we draw everything from. So the Convention for the Rights of the Child spells out that the basic human rights that apply to children everywhere. They say everywhere. It doesn't apply, or it's like it applies only maybe in Afghanistan or in Europe or in America or in Nigeria or in Equatorial Guinea or in Gabon. It is not so. These are rights that apply to children globally and everywhere. So wherever a child is found, these rights or these human rights apply to all the children. And the first one we'll be talking about is the right to survival, including health and nutrition. Every child has the right to survive. Every child has the right to be healthy. Every child has to have the right to be healthy and fit on nutritious food. So if the child is malnourished, the child will not be healthy. So every child has the right to be given good food that is balanced, a kind of balanced diet, so that it will keep the child's health intact. So anybody who is not feeding the child well or not giving the child a balanced meal or a nutritive meal is actually violating the rights of a child. And that has to be taken into serious consideration when working with children as well. And this will help us also to be able to identify children when they are malnourished among us, or wherever you are working, you'll be able to identify children who are malnourished, children who are not healthy, and you take a responsibility to see that you can link them up to services that can help them to become better in their health. Also, the right to develop to the fullest, including the right to education. Okay, when we talk about the right to develop to the fullest, we remember in the previous slide, we spoke about development, which has to do with physical, emotional, mentally, and every other way of development. So this is the right here. We have the right to development. So the child has to develop his to his fullest or to his full potentials. We also have the right to education, the right to family, and the right to identity. Talking about the right to education, most children are being violated in this aspect, especially in areas where we have a crisis or a disaster, like natural disasters, where children get to live and go to maybe areas where there are no schools, and also in areas where there is a kind of deliberate shutdown of schools. I keep taking example from the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, because that is where I've actually got to work for some time now. And so I have a full experience in those communities where we have the ongoing crisis, where children get to stay out of school because there is a lockdown, and maybe stay for some time and don't attend schools. That is total violation, because at the end of the day, the children are not educated, and if they are not educated, because they will not know how to manage even their emotions and even themselves at the end of the day. When we talk about the right to family and the right to identity, before someone becomes a child, that person must come from a family, or the person must come from you must come from a family. You must have a parent before you are a child. So if there is a child who does not have a family, it means that there is a problem somewhere. So that is why in most of the communities where we intervene, where we work, we have things we have of what we call foster parenting, because in the course of crisis, we have children who have been displaced from one place to another. And we also have separated children, unaccompanied children who have lost connections with their loved ones, with their caregivers. And at the end of the day, you discover that they don't have a family to associate with. They don't have who the child is to have a family. So we have this aspect where we have caregivers or foster parenting, where we can place the child into a foster family where they take care of the child feels that belongingness in the family, and at the end of the day, the child relates well with other people in the community, their peers, even in school and wherever. So foster parenting is highly encouraged, especially in areas where we have crisis, where children get to be displaced from one area to another, one community to another, and they get to lost their loved ones, their parents, and they don't know their whereabouts. We also have what we call reunification. After putting children into foster parenting, we look for a way to see how to reunify them with their loved ones, society like other children. So the right to a family, the right to an identity is very important. The child needs to know where he or she is coming from, the family where he or she is coming from, the country where she's coming from, the community where he or she is coming from. That is what we call identity. We also have the right to protect, to protection from harmful influences, violence, abuse, and exploitation. I'm sure we've taken a lot of time to look at violence, exploitation, and abuse already, which we will not spend much time on that again. We also have the right to participate fully in family, cultural, and social life, and in decision affecting their lives. We've looked at that already also. The right to be treated fairly and without discrimination. We've spoken about that. So those are the various rights of the child or rights of children according to the Convention for the Rights of a Child. We also have the Universal Declaration for Human Rights, which is one of the most widely accepted international law for human rights, with over 196 governments agreeing to implement it in their countries, ratifying it in their legal language. The right base, the Convention for the Rights of a Child describes children's rights, making it clear that all countries have as an obligation and responsibility to respect and promote this right. The convention sets out the minimum standards for children's rights. The convention is a compilation and clarification of children's human rights. So if you want to know more about the rights of children, you can also read from the Convention on the Rights of a Child, and you will have a full knowledge of it. Next slide, please. Okay, now looking at promoting strategies and exploitation. We all know that we have been looking at neglect, abuse, and if we are looking at child protection, it is because we are protecting the children from neglect, we are protecting the child from abuse, we are protecting the child from exploitation. So we are looking now at how to promote the strategies. What can we use to actually promote this, or strategies to protect children? The first one we look at is raise awareness. Educate communities about children's rights based on the UNHCR and the Convention for the Rights of a Child. Use child-friendly languages in schools, churches, and health centers to raise awareness, organize awareness campaigns and dialogues. So we can use we can raise awareness, and this awareness we can raise in every community. We have in the quarters, in the families, in schools, in churches, in health centers, about the rights of a child. Sometimes people violate these rights because they have not had an understanding, or because they don't even know that they are the rights that they are supposed to be protecting. So when we raise this awareness, it's in the societies to be aware of the rights of children, and also to help the children, or to help implement these rights even at their level, individual levels, or their community levels. We also look at train stakeholders, promote safe ways for children and adults to report abuse or neglect, work with local ensures quick response and follow up. So when we talk about training stakeholders, we are actually, when we talk about training stakeholders, we are actually looking at a situation where we train people or organizations or individuals on the rights of a child and how they can be able to manage this situation at their individual levels or at community levels. So we can train NGOs, we can train other local organizations, we can train individuals or stakeholders, government-led organizations, so that they will be able to promote all these activities. They will be able to promote the children's right. They will be able to promote activities that are related to children, because if they are not trained on it, they will not be able to give us what we require. So we need to be very careful too as well, even as to train these local organizations, even as holders as well, so that we promote child protection and save many children from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. We also look at strengthening reporting and referral systems. So you can promote safe ways for children and adults to report neglect and abuse. It can be through a child-friendly space, where you have a child-friendly space where children feel so comfortable to share what they are going through. It can be through individual counseling sessions where children feel comfortable to come maybe to a counseling center and get to work, and you get to work with them. At the end of the day, they can share what they are going through, be it in their homes or in the communities where they live. They can be able to report that, okay, this is the kind of violation I am going through, or this is the kind of abuse I am going through as a child. Since sometimes the perpetrators are the ones that take care of their children directly, and sometimes it brings that fear, it creates that fear for them not to actually report or talk about it. But when you create a safe space or a referral system for the children, where the children can be able to speak up and talk about what they are going through or what they are not feeling comfortable with, school them or educate their children to on their rights, even as they come and they work with you, or you work with them together to see that they become better. Next slide, please. Okay, we also talk about empowering children, which is encourage children to know and speak about their rights, which involve them in decisions that affect them. Teach life skill, confidence, and safety. You encourage children for a while, they will not understand what you mean by children's rights, and so they cannot talk about it unless somebody has told them about it. So when you get into a community and you meet children, you get to educate these children and empower them on their rights, so that they are aware of the rights, so much so that if someone is violating, support their loved ones too and teach them about their rights of children. We also talk about advocate for policy and practice, which has to do with work with local leaders and government to implement child protection laws. Monitor whether schools, homes, and institutions upholds children's rights. So this is done, we have to monitor this because we can talk mostly about children's rights, we can raise awareness about children's rights, but if we don't do this monitoring, we will not be able to know whether it is actually being implemented the way it is supposed to be done. And monitoring can be done through maybe visitation in schools and asking questions about children's rights. You can do that in hospitals, you can do that in homes as well, having a kind of one-on-one session with children, be it at a child-friendly space or any safe space where you work with children. You get to talk to them one-on-one, and when you talk with them one-on-one, at the end of the day, you will discover that the children will be able to express themselves and talk about their rights, and you can also be able to judge whether their rights are being spoken about clearly, and they have maybe whether they have understood about what the rights of children are all about. And so if we do all this, if we put all of this together, we will be able to protect the rights of children. We'll be able to know that these are the rights that are in place, and this is how we are supposed to protect the children according to the end of our session. I will just welcome questions and contributions from any other person. Thank you very much. Just take us to the last slide, please. We are done ready.
Okay, thank you very much,
Dear Nazi,
Mrs. Ruth.
please.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Miss Ruth, for that powerful and insightful presentation. And you have reminded us that protecting children's rights isn't just a legal or institutional duty. It is both a personal and a collective responsibility. And every one of us has a role to play in creating a safe, nurturing environment whereby children can flourish. And now we will move on to our question and answer session, where we'll give the floor for a few questions and reflections. So please, if you have any question, kindly raise up your hand or you drop the question in the chat box and I will call you out when it's your turn or read your question. Please, let's keep our exchange interactive, respectful, and insightful. So we're open now for questions. Hello, Miss Ruth.
Yes, I
Okay,
can
in the
hear you.
absence of questions in the
There
chat
is a
box, I will
hand
ask
show. I
my
see
own question.
some.
Okay,
I can see somebody raising
please,
their hand.
Madam Melanie, you're free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you so much, Miss Ruth, for this session. Thank you so much. Please, I really want you to explain a little bit more on this section, that how can we create a system where children feel free to report abuse without fear? I'm saying this because I came across a case, then I realized that the children were afraid to talk or to report to their parents. So how can we create a system where children feel free to report abuse without fear? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your question. Creating a system where children can feel free and safe to report this. It has to do with us, like I spoke about, a safe space. A safe space is a space where you have children, where children come together, they feel safe, they feel relaxed, they share their ideas, they talk about what disturbs them, they talk about what they are going through. So when we have this safe space, like what we call a child-friendly space, it helps the child to be able to speak out what they have in their minds or what they are going through in their homes without their parents or their caregivers being there present. Because most of the times when a child is being violated at home, it's challenging, because the child is afraid that when I speak about it, I will have problems with my parents or with my caregiver at home, and at the end of the day they feel so terrified and they don't want to talk about it. So when you have this safe space, where children can freely talk about what they're going through, it really helps them to speak out. So it is just by creating a kind of child-friendly space, we call it safe space, which is generally known. That's what we do. I'm just speaking from practice, what we practice as individuals or in our organization, what we practice. It is called a child-friendly space. And we also have the listening room, where it is a room where you get to listen to the children. They come there one-on-one, you talk with them, you understand their challenges, you understand their difficulties. So while working with children, you have this listening room, and in this listening room, you assure them of confidentiality of the information they are sharing with you. You assure them of their safety even while sharing that information with you, so much such that the children will not get into maybe trouble back at home when they are working, when they get back home. So after listening to them, you're going to help not just them, you find strategies on how to work with children and even their caregivers or their parents back at home, without mentioning that it is actually the children who have brought this to your knowledge. You can decide to do a kind of home visit, and you do an awareness, a house-to-house visit, where you do awareness maybe on children's rights, just because you have a target, which is that particular family where the child is coming from. When you get there, you raise that awareness, you educate the parents or the caregivers, and at the end of the day, they may have an understanding, and they will know that what they were doing was actually wrong against the children, and it will help them to become better. I think that is what we have for that. I don't know if it's okay by you.
It's okay. Thank you so much. It's okay. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Okay, we have another hand up. Rahila, please, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello everyone, hope you are all doing well, and thank you so much for your nice presentation. I just have a question, or maybe two questions. The first question is that what is the difference between the abuse as well violence? Because in abuse you also mentioned that physical abuse as well. We had physical violence at the first question, and the next, when a family or maybe there are some families, especially in Afghanistan, that they are kinds of neglecting their children. You said that the child labor is a kind of neglect as well. What should we do with this kinds of neglect? Thank you so much.
Okay, talking about abuse, or did you talk about abuse and violence?
Yes, the difference
Sorry, I didn't
between
get you well.
violence.
Okay, when we look at abuse and violence, they are kind of interrelated. Abuse and violence are kind of interrelated. And so, but with abuse comes in different directions. We can have physical abuse, we can have emotional abuse, we can have sexual abuse. But with violence, it mostly goes verbal and physical. When we talk about violence, it mostly goes with verbal and physical. Maybe using abusive words on the children, physical, that can cause them emotional damage. We can also talk about physical violence, which is the kicking, beating, or punching, and every form of go a long way of leaving a scar on the child. But abuse is kind of general. It's kind of general and goes mostly with emotional, psychological, and psychological. Thank you. And for the next question about I didn't get you well about your second question that concerns Afghan.
Yes, yes, some families are kind of neglecting their children. What should we do with those families?
Okay, families that are going through abuse, like I said earlier, we need to put an effort when commit this violence or abuses because they have no idea about what they are doing, or they have no knowledge about it. Sometimes some people have knowledge about it because nobody has spoken about it, they term it, or they turn it to become a reality. So, or they turn it to become a normalcy. They turn it to become a normalcy. Hello? So when they turn it to become a normalcy, they are just they keep on violating people's rights in families. But when we do a continuous awareness raising, let me take for instance, if you as an individual come today and you do an awareness on a certain topic, they may get it once and it will not really make sense. But the next time another person does it, another group of persons do it again, it will go a long way to create a kind of insight in their minds to understand that, okay, this thing we are actually doing is wrong. And I think that awareness raising is very powerful. Awareness raising is very powerful because most people get into these actions unknowingly or unintentionally. They don't know that that is what they are doing is wrong. And so when you get to raise awareness, you get to educate them one-on-one at the level of the family, at the level of the community. You can organize family meetings with individual families. You can do community engagement where you empower the entire community. Like we talk about schools, you educate the children in schools. You get to the hospitals, people who have been
We have one participant raising their hand. Please take the floor. Your mentor will address you.
Okay, good evening to other participants. Good evening to Ruth. We are so happy and grateful for this wonderful topic. My name is Gerard Nge from Cameroon. The first worry is about the safe space. From what we've noticed, some of the safe space are not really safe, and probably that could be one of the reasons why the children get it really very difficult to express themselves. As per a few trainings that we had, we were taught on how a safe space should look like. We were given samples and we actually visited some safe spaces, and we can confirm that they have actually changed and all is well. I have a question. My worry is in our community where we live, it is very, very difficult. In fact, it is a taboo that a child is being abused in the parents' house, or a child who is living with the uncle or the auntie and the child is abused, and such information gets to the parents of that child. Most often, they will tell the child it's a disgrace in the family. It is something that is so bad. It is not normal that people should hear that your uncle, your cousin, your auntie, or one of your family members actually abused you. And so, Ruth, being somebody who has been in the field for a very long time, and you understand the context in which we work, what do you think can be done to get these parents actually come out publicly and tell people this actually happened to my child? This was done by my brother, my sister, my cousin, my uncle, because the silence is really, really, really very huge in my community. The silence is huge. It is really very difficult for a child to open up and tell the parents that it is uncle, it is auntie who did this or that. And then for education purposes, I think we should advise especially our mothers, our sisters, our aunties, and our wives. Do not send your girl child to give food to that uncle who is living around the house, to the point where you will send the girl child to take the food into his room. Remember that when the child takes the girl child, even the male child too, not just the girl child, even the male child. This is something we have been trying to discourage in our community. I noticed the neighbor doing it, and so I walked up to the neighbor. And when I spoke to that neighbor, I was surprised that that was the first time she was hearing such a thing. And we don't know. From every indication, that is what would have happened. I was in another community just last week where we had a case. A child of 14 years, a girl child of 14 years who was constantly sent to that uncle. I keep taking that uncle as an example because it is actually the uncle who did what he did. Like mother would cook food, rather than calling the uncle to come and get the food himself, she kept sending that girl child to go and give that food. At times she goes, she will stay there for 1 hour, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and the mother does not try to find out what was happening. Each time she'll ask, what made you to stay that long in that uncle's house? I was watching a movie. That's how she answered, until she ended up with pregnancy. So I think for education purposes, it will be good that we equally find time to educate our mothers, our sisters, our parents on sending these children to go give food to that uncle who is so close to their house. Those are the people who actually destroy these children. And then another thing, if I'm not taking too much time, another thing too is we should not encourage our girl children to go to the offices of our friends, of our brothers, our friends. Let me take friends for example, to collect money, or like my brother, send this girl to come get her school fees in my office, send this girl to come get some support for her school in my office, and so on and so forth. There is just so much that I want to talk about. Unfortunately, this space is not mine, and so I need to respect the time. Thank you again, Ruth, for what you're doing.
Thank you very much for your contribution. It's really powerful, and indeed it's great. It's great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hello, Miss Ruth. We have a question here in the chat box. And it asks, what is the difference between trauma and abuse?
The difference between trauma and abuse?
Yes, please.
Trauma is is the after effect of an abuse. Trauma is not actually abuse. Trauma is the after effect of abuse. It's a kind of mental disorder that comes as a result of an abuse or a violation. Maybe a child has been abused sexually, or the child has been, yes, we have a kind of sexual exploitation abuse, physical abuse, we have emotional abuse. And the child gets, the person gets in for a case of rape, someone who has been raped or by a perpetrator, and the child, because the child has not been able to heal out of it, may get into trauma. So trauma is the after effect of an abuse. Thank you very much.
Thank you too very much. And our last question goes as thus. It says, my heart breaks over the horrific reality of child trafficking for sexual exploitation by the elite. How can we strengthen and monitor our borders to stop this evil? Hello, Madam Ruth.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. My network was somehow
Okay,
kicking me out, so
no problem.
get to hear the.
I'll take it over again.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
so it says, my heart breaks over the horrific reality of child trafficking for sexual exploitation by the elites. How can we strengthen and monitor our borders to stop this evil? Did you get me now?
Yes, I got you.
Okay, thank you.
Talking about child trafficking by elites and for sex and whatever, uh, knowing very well that when somebody is an elite, that means it is someone who is in power. We talked about abuse that is caused by people because of their power, because of wherever they find themselves, because of their position, maybe their political position, because of their financial state. We spoke about that. And somebody who is an elite and doing that, just it's kind of challenging, but we will not limit the fact to our awareness raising and education to to stakeholders. We spoke about empowering stakeholders. Stakeholders is made up of government institution. Stakeholders is made up of elites of a community. It is made up of a lot of people. And sometimes it has to do with somebody's conscience and mind. And when you educate them on what they are doing, that is wrong. And it is a continuous process, like I said before. If they are being educated or schooled on all these aspects, it is automatically stop it, but we can reduce it. We can reduce it from happening as frequent as it used to be. It's really a disheartening situation, but we cannot do otherwise, because all we have to do is maybe empower them. We have to advocate, we are present. You still do that kind of awareness. It gets a way, it has a way of, maybe when you talk to somebody over and over, the person gets to change from what they are doing. And we also have maybe we take a legal step. If you are able to identify that, okay, this person is an elite and is the perpetrator, you can also get to take legal actions, because a legal officer who will help you to go through it successfully, even without putting the child in further harm, or putting yourself, who is a caseworker or a child protection worker, in additional harm too as well. So you can involve the legal assistance or whoever that works with the law, so much so that you can be able to address that situation. So awareness raising and maybe involving the law, the legal bodies can help to remedy this situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ruth.
Thank you.
Mr. Gerald, is your hand
Hello?
still up for
Okay.
another question?
Yes, my hand is up. I don't know if I can still add something before we close up.
You're free to. You'll be the last person.
Okay, I just Madam Ruth answered already. I just thought I should add this. The issue at hand, as per this child trafficking and how to handle it at the level of the borders, it's from what we've noticed, it's about hunger, and let's not forget what we see on social media and what our children too equally see on social media. It all begins with education. I think we need to re-strategize our the means that we normally use to educate our kids, because we had a recent case in Buda. Buda is in the west region of Cameroon. We had a recent case where a particular lady was moving around trafficking young girls between the ages of 13 to 20, 22, 25. And the impression she gave them was, because they are hungry, the impression she gave them was, there's this job that I'm going to give you people, and you'll be earning this amount at the end of the month. That's how she was able to traffic at least 30 to about 35 girls down to that town where I just mentioned. And fortunately for these girls, one of the girls' relatives actually contacted our services, and we did the investigations, and that's how we got to where they were lodged. I don't want to tell you the condition in which they were lodged. About 35 of them sleeping on the floor, not like in separate rooms, in one big parlor, in one big hall, in a very dirty location. And so we struggled until we were able to get those girls out of that stress. Unfortunately, immediately we were leaving, some were actually negotiating to go back that stress. That is what we could not understand. What actually happened? What did she do? What did she give? What did she give them that made them wanted to go back to the stress where they were, where we liberated them? And so, first, it's about hunger, and then secondly, it's about what the children watch and see on social media. I think that's another topic on its own. Until we get to educate these children, as we speak, I hear there are some countries where they keep exporting young children to those countries with the aim of giving them jobs that don't exist. It's only when they get to those locations that they start, that they are told on what they are supposed to be on what they will be doing. It equally happens in even countries out of Africa and so on and so forth. I think this topic too will actually help if we want to talk about cross-border trafficking and on how or what should be done to stop these children from falling prey. Those who are still very tender, the younger ones, that's the between the ages of 0 to 3 years, or between the ages of 0 to 2 years, that is understood. Those, they cannot talk and they cannot express themselves. But then remember, if you have a child, know who you want to keep that child with when you are going out, going to the market, going to the farm, going to where, and always mind, you will never know a human being until you see the action of the human being. I think that's where I can end for now, because if I want to keep talking, I can talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for the time, and thank you for this wonderful topic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerald, for that very insightful aspect on the case. And with that, we have come to an end of our question and answer session. As we wrap up, I want to sincerely thank Madam Z. Root for sharing her expertise and her passion, and to Women Ascension for organizing this important session. And let us continue to be the voices that uphold and protect the rights of every child. Thank you all for joining, and please stay connected for our next session. That is a wrap for our session. Thank you all.